Yikes. 5 on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing rubber frauds. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the flow playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat, we trust.
You sound scared.
It's power, have the guts. We're here to bring the heat. Y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome into 5 on the Floor live here on the 5 Reasons YouTube channel and the 5 on the Floor podcast feed. You can find us on Apple, also on Spotify. If you're on YouTube, make sure you hit like, subscribe, turn the notifications on. We do these live after some games, usually after better games than this, but we will try to get to some comments as we go forward today. The floor plan, Miami Heat lose 125-96. Milwaukee Bucks literally got off the plane and spanked the Heat. Literally, they got off the plane, and 2 hours later, they were at the arena. And then after a slow start, this game started 20-5. So let's go to the beginning of this. It was 20-5. So from there, Miami with the 20-5 lead, they were outscored 120-76. 120-76. We will get to the formalities here, and of course, to our great sponsors. I'm Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick in the 5 Reasons Sports. We got Brady Hawk. You can follow him at Brady Hawk 305. We got Alex Toledo. You can follow him at Tropical Blanket. Really, I'll start here because I feel like we need to start every episode with this. There's nothing new on Jimmy Butler today. He's back home. He's an honorary chairman of a paddle tournament. That's pretty much what's going on with Jimmy Butler. There was no news today in the national media that moved anything. Bradley Beal's contract did not get any more affordable. He has not waived his no trade clause. Jimmy Butler is not on his way to Phoenix at this point. So nothing new on that front. The Miami Heat, though, there is something new. They're now officially under 500. So after kind of straddling that line, being a little bit over it, even when things have been bad, they're now 21-22 on the season. And they are losing ground quickly, not just for the playoff race, but even in terms of the play-in. But we're going to start here because we really can't avoid this topic anymore. This is not the only reason they lost, okay? They lost for a lot of reasons. I mean, they were outplayed. Dame Lillard had a near triple-double. I think they took a rebound away from him at the end, but basically had a triple-double. They were just outmanned, and the new starting lineup, Pelle Larsson was their 12th different starter this year. 12 players for the Heat have started now. Larsson picked up 3 fouls very early on in the game, so he was not a factor. So that starting lineup did not work. And, of course, Terry Rozier came in and made a mess again. This time, 25 minutes, 2 of 8 from the field, 0 of 4 from 3. He's going to have a historically bad three-point shooting season. This is not worst in Heat history. This may be an all-time bad three-point shooting season. But we have to start here because we can't get around it anymore. Kel'el Ware is out playing Bam Adebayo right now. And that's not a good thing. Okay? I can't frame that as a good thing at this stage. I understand that Kel'el putting up numbers that people have been waiting for this, 22 and 10 tonight, 9 of 15 from the floor. But let me give you Bam's points here in January. He started the month 23 against New Orleans, 20 against Indiana. But coincidentally, those were Jimmy's first 2 games back after the illness or whatever it was. And he came back, and then, of course, Jimmy only scored 9 points in each of those 2 games, but Bam had 23 and 20. Now, since then, and again, this is suspensions for Jimmy, him coming back 3 games, not playing particularly hard. Now he's suspended again. Bam's point totals 4, 18, 19, 15, 13, 10, 16, 6, 12, and today 11. Brady, I understand that we're not expecting him to be the primary scorer anymore, but this is significant regression. And there's no excuse now that he's the biggest player on the floor and all of that. They've done what he wanted. They put a 7-footer next to him. He has still been unproductive. Today was 5 of 12. Had 14 rebounds, but again, the 0 of 2 from 3. and 5 field goals total made, 11 points. What's going on?
I mean, look, with the direction of this team is going, the realm of going young, trading Jimmy, all this stuff, it's opened up a position here where he is supposed to be the number 2 here offensively on, a team that doesn't really have any expectations. And the fact that he's still struggling to find his shot, still struggling to find, I'm not even going to say his shot, just struggling to find shot attempts. Because he doesn't look comfortable with any shot he takes, if that makes sense. Like, we're seeing him shoot the 3 ball, and as we've said before, we're past that. Like, he can take it occasionally, whatever, but it's just that's not something we're going to talk about with Bam's offensive game at this moment. That's going to take it to the next level. The mid-range stuff is just not there. Like, there was a point in the game where he had like a clear turnaround, and he like hesitates twice and then shoots it, and it rolls out because he's just hesitant multiple times. The only time he looks confident is if he's up in the air, like as a roll man, and they're lobbing it up. And he's not getting as many opportunities there as a guy like Khalil Ware, who they're just sending it up there and he's finding ways to finish no matter what. So, I mean, we've said it before, but it's like, I just don't know what's new here. I mean, they're not going to put much more on his plate with the way he's playing right now. Like, there's no more expectations offensively. I don't really know the other spots they could put him in. As you said, they have the double big. They're playing him more on the wing. It's not really opening up more because ultimately, I think what you're seeing is that you want him to play more inside with the way he's playing right now. And with the double big, it's almost like Khalil's now the primary role man. He's the primary lob thrower. So it almost looks worse for Bam's offensive game right now with the way that he's not hitting jumpers. So
nothing easy. He gets nothing easy now.
But he's not making it easier on himself either. And that's like the key. Like he's taking so many tough shots into the body of players, picking up his dribble. It's just so many of the little things that he's just not flowing confidently into. Like, I remember so many times last year, he'd get a rebound in the coast-to-coast stuff where he'd kind of play into the open break. I don't remember many times where Bam played into the open break this season, where it's not a pass, where it's him going to the basket, just putting his head down and doing something. I thought early in the season we'd see kind of an upgrade with free throw attempts. We're not seeing that either. Like, he's just – if you're not – productive as a consistent, efficient scorer, you're not going to get the calls from the ref if you're trying to foul bait. So it's just a rough look offensively because let's be honest as well, the reason why it even looks even worse is when you can't shoot from 3. And now when you have Tyler, that's kind of your main number 1 and your bench looks like the way it did tonight. It's like, it's a sore thumb in the starting lineup that your number 2 offensive player cannot step up in that way when, your role players aren't outplaying the way that they always have.
You mentioned Tyler. Tyler tonight came back from the groin injury, 6 of 19 from the floor, so not his most efficient night. 4 of 13 from 3, 21 points. Duncan was 3 of 12 from 3. Ware was 2 of 7 from 3. Rozier was 0 of 4 from 3. Alex, you get to be the Rozier guy again tonight. I know you enjoy that. They sat him. It seemed like Spo wanted to get away from him. He started Larson, right? He started Larson with Hero, Ware, Adebayo, and Duncan. But Rozier still played 25 minutes, which tied with Jaquez was most off the bench, I guess in part because Larson had the foul trouble. Just why not just play Burks? Why not just play Burks? Hell, play Josh when he comes back. Just why not play anybody? Like I don't understand where this is going. Oh, you're on mute. He's taking your voice away. All right, Brady, why not just play Burks? I know what you're going to say. That's why I wanted to go to Alex on this. But go ahead. Why not just play Burks?
Do you guys hear me? Or
yes,
I hear you. Yes.
Okay.
Let's see if Spo hears you.
I think they're trying to censor me. I think, quote unquote, they are trying to censor me.
Well, it's the 1-year anniversary of the trade, which
my goodness.
I don't want to go back. Should we go back and look at the podcast we did that night? Because we're going to be embarrassed about that one, right? That's not.
I mean, we've all been culprit on this already. Like, we've all this is the worst kept secret. Is that I've already said it a million times on all our different platforms. I don't think I've ever been more wrong about anything than I was about Terry Rozier. Like, in my entire life, basketball or not, I don't think I've ever been more wrong about anything, man. Like, it's just hard to say anything else about him. And honestly, I don't even want to pick on him in this podcast because I this game and the situation that this organization is in right now is so much worse than just Terry Rozier. But Terry is like so symbolic in all of this because obviously he's playing so bad and his game stands out in this tough time. But it's like that was really like, woof, the fact that you brought up the 1-year anniversary of maybe one of the worst trades they've ever made. And maybe like the last thing, kind of like something that kept them from being able to do anything almost to upgrade the Jimmy.
Well, he was the
Butler.
offseason acquisition, though. He was the offseason acquisition, Alex.
I'm saying, yeah, like that was their move. So they had little else to make a move after that, and that's why it ended up being so costly, because you thought you were getting an upgrade, and you ended up getting a guy who, for most of the season, has been the worst player in your rotation. So that's what I have to say about Terry Rozier. And this game was a lot more than just Terry Rozier. Like, this was about their game plan. And I mean their game plan, not like I'm blaming Spo. I mean, like, they kind of got they don't have a lot to work with when it comes to being able to put together 48 minutes of good basketball, because their offense runs out, right? Like, they hit a cap. And then on defense, their perimeter defense has just been bad.
Yes.
Just awful. That is not a formula to win games. And I'm not saying this as like a Spo thing. I'm saying this as this is where the roster stands, right? Like, you started this season as a team that thought of themselves as a contender, to now being forced to bite the bullet and just, go straight into a transition into a rebuild. And it's like, oh, here we go. It's like a head start on this rebuild. And this is what rebuilds look like. This team is just not good anymore. Like, we were talking on playback about, oh, we know what this team is. And, they're going to win some games. They're going to lose some. They're going to be average. I think it's worse than that. Like, I'm not saying they're like, Wizards bad, but I don't think this team is that anymore. I think they're probably going to lose more than they win. Now, they're going to beat some young teams, but they just got whooped by the Blazers the other night. Like, I know they almost came back. I'm just saying, I don't think we can talk about this team in the same ways that we did before. We almost had to like adjust our expectations, bring everything down a notch, and be like, okay, this is just a young team now. They're going to be mostly bad. They're not going to be good. They are beating good teams with Jimmy Butler on the roster. Like, everything has changed for them. This whole like Jimmy circus. Not only is it a complete like, what show, but now you're seeing the results on the court where it's like, oh yeah, this team is just not good. Like, there's no formula for them being good. They might make play in by default, but that's about it.
Okay, so I want to get to we want to get to the reality of the standings here, because I think this plays into it, because I'm with you. Okay, right now they don't have an identity. They don't. Okay, they have. I mean, the guy who looks most confident on the floor is the guy that Spo wouldn't put in until a week ago. Like, that's really what this looks like. Like, Kel'el Ware seems to be playing freely, and there's going to be mistakes that come with that, but he's producing. Tyler had an off night, coming back off the groin injury and all that. I think he'll be fine, but other than that, like, I'm not seeing other guys look more Kakis does not look more confident. Jovic does not look more confident. It's basically Ware out there that seems to be playing free. But the issue here is that no matter how bad Miami is, they're still probably going to be a play-in team, because I'm looking at the bottom of the standings. Like, Alex, I'll go to Brady on it, but I don't know how far they can fall. I mean, right now they're 21-22. They're in the 9 spot. Okay. They are still within a game of winning their division. Like, the two teams ahead of them. I know divisions don't matter, but literally they're right behind Atlanta and Orlando, who are both at 500. And they should have passed the Magic a long time ago, because the Magic didn't have Franz. They didn't have Paolo. Now both of those guys are back. But like, nobody runs away from them, because this conference is just not very good. And then you look behind them. They're still ahead of Chicago. Chicago is probably going to trade off players, okay? Philadelphia is a total disaster. They've lost 9 out of 11. They're still 6 full games behind Miami. So we may have a season where, like, they win 40% of their games the rest of the year, and they're still going to be a 9 or 10 play-in team. That's so. I guess in that context, Brady, how do you manage this?
So basically, they're what they were, except they just don't have the peaks of the playoffs. Like, that's pretty much what you're describing. But the question is, will they be even at that same level? Because as much as everybody downplayed, the play of Jimmy Butler in the regular season, because it wasn't at the level that he was in the playoffs, he still got them to certain positions in the regular season, such as, like, this is just a minor thing, but you notice it when you go a little bit more to your youth and less Jimmy Butler. Like, the ways he'd control and slow down a game and get to the line, they don't have that guy right now.
No.
They don't have a guy that's going to just get, like, we thought Bam could step up and be that guy to get to the free throw line a little more. And that's why I mentioned that part of it, because I think that's ultimately what we're going to be talking about. And their young guys just aren't going to get those calls consistently. Tyler is not going to get those calls consistently, even though he's getting more to the line just because he's getting attention. They just don't have that ability to take control of games right now. And that's what the kind of the fear of probably not fear, because I think a lot of people want to see them probably slide down the standings and probably get a better draft pick. But you're right. I think they ultimately, where they are is where they're going to be. I think they're going to be hovering around 500 this whole way, just because they lost bad to the Blazers and lost bad tonight. They're probably going to have a 2-game span where they play really well, and everybody's going to be excited again, and everybody's going to say, well, the two big man stuff, the Jovic and Ware have a big game. Like, it's just going to be the ebbs and flows of a young team winning and losing as a 500 ball club. So, yeah, I just think Alex said it best with the expectations. I really do think everybody just has to, change the expectations of this team, I guess, right now, because it is ultimately they are who they are. They played a much better basketball team tonight. They just did. Like, they don't have the ability to match the play of probably Giannis or Dame. Tyler has the ability to match Dame just off his pure shooting, but they don't have the ability to go back and forth with this type of team as they did with Jimmy. It's just the way it is. So I think that's kind of the accept reality part of this. But this is the whole thing with going young. This is what's going to happen.
This comes in from Corbs. We appreciate the super chats here. Watch film on Bam from 3 years ago. He seems to step slower, hesitant to block shots, doesn't attack the rim when he brings up the ball. Bam has completely lost
3 years
identity.
ago. Huh? Who was he?
I mean, I would go to last
3
year.
years ago.
No, but I would go to last year, right? I mean, he doesn't look the same to me. Anyway, Alex, run the player of the game because I want to go to something.
Hold on. I think we got to acknowledge.
We got a nice super chat here, so we appreciate this one. All right, thanks for the work you all do covering this. Do I have to read this word for word? I guess we do. We've got a $25 super chat. I'll read anything.
It's $25 to read anything.
I'll read anything. Stay classy, San Diego. Thanks for the work you all do covering this garbage team every day. LOL. If Highsmith is going to drop to the 9th man of the rotation, I think the defense takes a real hit. They can't win consistently with a below average defense. I know that Brady is nodding on that one. He did get more minutes in the second half, and again, he got more minutes after Larson had the foul trouble, but I don't think Spo really knows what he wants to do with Haywood right now, right? It's been all over the place this season, and I feel like at times they've wanted to get more offense, and they've taken him out, but then he's also had games where he's stuck the three when he's been left open, and that's not something that Jaquez consistently does, so, or at least had not until recently. There was one more super chat I wanted to get to. When do we have the discussion about picks for Bam before he depreciates? I feel like that's
where we're at. That's where we're at.
That is where we're at. I mean, there's no other. We can't avoid the topic anymore. I mean, 10 straight games without scoring 20. I understand that's not his primary role on this team, but 10 straight games without scoring 20.
Can we talk about the biggest problem with Bam's offensive game and how we talk about like the comment from before, talking about 3 years ago, right? I think that's a decent place to go to because 3 years ago, his shot profile, before we had the 2 regular seasons of him having high volume mid-range, right? Like he was in a similar role to what he's in now. Not exactly the same, of course, but he was so much more effective at it. And I think the biggest difference is that he was able to be like the guy getting the relief points, getting the easy shots more often than not. And I think Brady hit on something earlier in the show with, one of the cons that they're going to have to work around with the Ware and Bam stuff. Of course, I want to keep seeing it because at this point, they're just a young team. Like I want to see them work through this. But one of the, there's pros and cons towards playing any lineups. And when you do things like that, like you see the defense, right? With Ware and Bam, where it's like, yeah, Bam can go out there and, you can put him on whoever, and you're still going to have another rim protector and a guy who can, be huge out there and athletic. That's obvious to anybody watching. The offensive side of the floor with the spacing, like you're either like they started the season off trying to go 5 out, right? Where everybody is able to spot up. You can't really do that with Bam and Ware. I know Ware is a willing shooter, and I'm glad. I like that for him. The shot, looks decent, but you don't want them taking that many, right? Whether it's Ware or Bam, even though I kind of trust Ware's shot a little bit more right now. I think they're trying to figure out like the balance of when one of them spaces versus one of them rolls. And it feels like a lot of times, like Brady mentioned earlier, Ware is the primary roller. And I think, Bam had a lob tonight, a couple lobs tonight, I think, actually. I'm not sure because I might be confusing some of them where I remember one of them was with Duncan. But the point I'm trying to get to is he doesn't get those relief points that he used to get in the past. I think a lot of the relief points are going to Ware now. And Bam is just kind of stuck at the closer to the top of the perimeter in this screening and passing role. And it's like, go ahead and make something out of nothing. Like he's not the one getting.
Okay, Alex, I understand. And I want to go through some of it. And we're already 20 minutes in. We haven't even gotten to the player of the game. So we do need to get to that.
good enough to give you stuff outside of the relief points. That's my point.
I get it, and we'll go through the relief points, and I want to get to it on the other side of this. But I'll also say this. We've talked so much about you got to get him help in the front court. You got to get him somebody bigger to play with, and now we're basically saying that
adding another guy who's in the paint was not going to make things easier for Bam on offense. It was going to make things easier for him on defense. Now, like this only, again, like Bam is now, he can't be in the spaces he was before to get easy baskets. He can't, because where is there? Or if not, you get like the high-low stuff, but you obviously had like.
But Alex,
timing thing.
I understand the technical elements of this, but at some point, like he's got to make his own way, right? We talk about every. I understand it's basketball, but we keep talking about every pairing he's with. There's some issue. Well, okay, if you put in a small guy with him, then he doesn't have enough help on the boards. Now we're saying we put a tall guy with him, and who's a roller, and so now he has to be a spacer.
You're overthinking this. This is way like it's not that complex. This whole thing is Bam is a very limited and not that good of an offensive player that people want him to be.
Okay.
There's no hold on. There is no easy baskets for him. So where are they supposed to come from? If he can't be in the paint, if his whole thing is high-low stuff and trying to find, high-low and be a screener and passer, there is nothing for him. He is not good enough to create baskets out of thin air. If you put a guy in a 7-footer who's going to be around the rim 24/7, and that you're going to put half of his minutes next to him, you're going to have to find a way to work around those cons. Guess what? They're going to leave. They're going to leave Ware and Bam wide open, and they're going to sell out and go cover the Heat shooters. And that's where they're getting open on the rolls sometimes. But guess what? They can't both be rolling at the same time. And yes, like you can work around it some possessions, but other possessions, your spacing's going to be messed up. So this is a whole new dynamic that they've never had to work with this entire Jimmy era. So like expecting Ware next to Bam to somehow help Bam on offense, no, that's just a defensive thing. Like I think now he has to work through this. Spo and him and the whole team have to work through this, because this was not something that was going to be easier for him on that side of the floor. Like I just think that's it. Like there's nothing for him in this offense now. He is a passer and a screener.
The only way in this new look offense for him to consistently get different looks is if he is being guarded by fours and smaller wings now, and he just goes to the post game. But we don't, that's not something you're going to consistently see either. He's not going to play that bully ball back to the basket game. That's from the years ago we've talked about that. That was always the thing that was like the last piece of the offense, and now we kind of reverted back. But that's the only advantage to him being at the four offensively, is being just more physical against different looks, because now he's being guarded by quicker footed defenders. So now he's not going to have those advantages one-on-one that he did against a lot of these other fives.
I think it's an interesting discussion we should probably have in greater depth in another pod, because I do think that people are going to clip just part of what you said, Alex, which is he's not good enough on offense. Anyway,
I've been saying that for a long time too.
Player
and I still Bam is a max player, and it's still a foundational piece.
23rd minute. Let's get to the player of the game.
And now it's time for the A Aggressive Insurance Player of the Night, sponsored by our friend Lynette. You can find her at insurancebylynette.com. That's with 2 N's and 2 T's, insurancebylynette.com. If you need car insurance, renter's insurance, homeowner's insurance, or any other type of insurance, she's the person to go to. Based in Lauderhill, she services the entire Tri-County area here in South Florida, and she will make sure to get you the best deal. She'll probably talk to you about the Heat while you're at it. Reach out to her, insurancebylynette.com. And now, the player of the game.
All right, so, Brady, how does this make you feel when Dame has 29, 9, and 11?
I said Tuesday.
All the scoring after the first quarter, by the way.
Is he just going to cook them every time?
Pretty much.
Look, this timeline of Tuesday, them getting spanked by Joe Cronin's Portland Trail Blazers. Jimmy gets suspended on Wednesday, and Thursday they get cooked by Damian Lillard. Like, if you were to tell me that 2 off seasons ago when all that talk was going down, I think I would have, lost my joy and probably left this podcast by now. Now, I'll say this: 24 minutes in, and I know we're focusing on the right things with certain players and Terry and Bam, but you mentioned, either Dame or Gary Trent probably could be the players of the game in this one. But I think it goes hand in hand, and this probably goes in with another segment. But Alex, you hit on the perimeter defense thing earlier. That's the number one thing to me right now, because look, we could talk about the Bam Ware stuff offensively, but the reason they went to it was to be better defensively, was to find a base, was to let Bam roam on the perimeter, was to have Ware be kind of the shot disruptor around the rim. That's all fine, but when you have like the others on the court that are chasing around, cannot get around screens, late on rotations, all of this stuff that is happening, Like if you go look at the shots that Milwaukee was getting, Miami did it to themselves. They got great looks the entire night. They just have not been good enough defensively. And that's why when you read that comment earlier about Haywood, the reason I'm kind of more so saying it is because they just need perimeter defense right now. Like as much as even when you talk about, Jimmy, when he was like taking off nights in the past, he was still a disruptor on the defensive end. And he was just a bigger body that was willing to defend. And right now with some of these lineups that they're going to around the two bigs, they just don't have that. Like I'm just looking at the certain lineups they're going to that are trying to chase around these screens, and Dame and Gary Trent are just able to fire with ease. And it's just this is what happens as well, though.
18 of 40 from three. 18 of 40 from three. And here's the other issue with the Wham starting lineup. Okay. They don't have a backup center now. Right?
Well, I mean, they can just stagger the two and they'll be fine.
Well, if they're going to stagger, here's another thing. This is a whole other topic that I'm just going to get into here for a second. What happened to like giving the keys to the young guys to control off on the ball to get the other shooters available? Like Nico has gotten the ball taken out of his hands here for a good portion of things. Like they went to Nico and Jaime for a stretch there. Things look good on that road trip. They go back to Tyler on the ball, Duncan on the ball. They're not getting as clean of looks because the attention is on them. Now Nikola Jovic is becoming a spot-up shooter. This was the whole thing of changing the role, was to get Nico out of this spot-up role, to get him on the ball, to be his best self, to be the playmaker. So that's number one. Number two, if they're going to stagger the bigs and do this thing, they need to get back to – it was my one thing about the Bam Ware starting lineup that I was a little worried about. Nico and Ware need to be connected. They need to play together. That was one of their best actions of the season. You have to rely on that
100%.
two-man game. So if you're going to stagger and take Tyler out early, you take Tyler and Ware out early, bring Nico in, then bring them back in so you can run that three-man unit again. Because there's just certain – look, we mentioned earlier, like there's certain guys that he's going to pull out, like Pella's starting tonight. Haywood, he's still trying to find his role. There's other guys, I think, that even like Keyshawn Johnson, I think is going to have there's going to be a point in this season where Keyshawn Johnson gets extended run. There's certain guys he wants to play, but more than anything, it's about finding the right lineups, because there was some lineups tonight that I just don't know how they're going to create offensively. When Tyler's not in there and some of these lineups that they're leaning on, it's just not going to work. It really isn't.
I think to your point, and I saw this comment come through, and they're coming through quickly now, is it feels to me like Spo was layering the season to eventually get to Bam and Ware. That there was some kind of an end point where he was going to get to it, but there are layers that come before it. And it does feel like, and I saw someone comment on this, and it's the first time it sort of struck me, it feels like the Jimmy thing kind of forced this sooner. That with him not being available and not being able to go to him and, like we say, slow down the game, do all the things that he does, that it was like, okay, now we're going to try this other new look earlier than maybe we would have. And it doesn't feel like it's been thought through, like these other layers in the way that Spo would have done it before. Because we've seen him do this before. We're like, even in like Big Three era time, where it's like, okay, he's getting to all this because eventually Mike Miller is going to find his way into the rotation. There were different pieces of it that would come before the ultimate lineup that we would see. The same thing happened with Dragic in the bubble. He was setting other lineups and rotations up until finally he put Dragic into the starting lineup. This feels totally disjointed to me. It feels like this was not the plan, okay? And it's just that, all right, we're going to try Ware now to try something different. They had some success with it, but the other parts of this are not in place. And that's why it's felt odd also, where he separated Bam and Duncan for a period of time. And now Duncan's back in there with Bam, okay, which we've said had to happen. And Haywood in one night, out the other night. 12 different starters at this point. I'm not pinning it all on Jimmy. This is not about Jimmy and his dispute with the organization. I'm just saying it doesn't seem like Spo was ready to get to this. And I think that's part of the reason why we're kind of questioning different pieces of it. To me, the next piece has to be take Terry Rozier out of the rotation entirely. No, it has to be. It has to be. You can't. He's a negative every night.
Was Drew Smith's injury a bigger deal than Jimmy forcing his way out? Because that's the way it feels watching some of these games right now. Because Drew Smith would be playing
starting
minutes.
Yes,
he would be starting. He probably would be starting.
He would be starting. I think that they were setting up for that. If you look at the way that he was layering the rotation, I think Drew was going to start next to Tyler. I think that's where this was headed. Anyway, play of the night.
This is just so funny, man.
Play of the night.
So funny.
Play of the night.
And now it's time for the X-Ray of the Play of the Day, brought to us by our friends over at Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services. Nelson and his team will bring the X-ray equipment and the staffing to you. If you work in a hospital or a medical office, get a consultation today at c-armandstaffing.com or give them a call at 561-891-9620. Their fleet of trucks at your service. Again, it's Mobile C-Arm and Staffing Services, 561-891-9620. And now, the X-Ray of the Play of the Day.
Is it Giannis blocking Bam, Alex? Should we do that? That's the only thing I can remember.
Yeah.
I don't know. You got something else? It was
I'm not thinking about any damn plays. Like that game was way too fast paced for me. There was way too much like god awful defense. There's no way I'm picking.
I'll pick one. Six points. So yeah, that was 6 points in 1 second.
Which one? Oh yeah,
6 points in 1 second. I mean, probably summarizes this game best. I mean, like Duncan running into a shooter, 3 free throws, Ware throwing it out of bounds, then a 3. Like that summarizes everything. Like there's the mistakes defensively. There's just like.
Have you ever seen that before?
I mean, I'm not the guy to ask. Ethan, you've seen,
Okay, you know what? Decades. You don't have to make me feel old. It's already past my bedtime. I've seen some bad shit with this organization at times. I basically
gave up a 6-point play, if you think about it. So, hold on, let me just frame it this way. Because remember, like when that first started, when Duncan fouled them, the clock went to 0. Right? So I would have told you, right? Like after that, like okay. When you get to halftime, even though the clock went to 0, the Bucks would have scored 6 more points. Like that is ridiculous. There was only 1 second on the clock. How do you turn over the ball and let them get it 3 after a 3-point foul? Like that was insane. And also, by the way, there was like a Dame and 1, like I don't know, like 30 seconds before that too. So like that was just an insane run for him. But and no shade towards Dame because that was awesome. But it was like that, man. The Heat shot themselves in the foot so many times tonight with their just god-awful perimeter defense, man.
All right, the helicopter's coming back a little bit, but we made out most of what you said. And I'll say this. I covered 07-08, okay? I covered Kasib Powell, Stefan Lazmi, and every other Blake Aher and every other player that they could pull up from what was then the D-League, not the G-League.
Sundiata Gaines.
And I've Sundiata Gaines, and I've never seen that. And Penny Hardaway, like way washed Penny Hardaway. And I've never seen a sequence quite like that. Although this is the season where we saw Eric Spoelstra use the time that he didn't have. So I feel like if we start to go through the 10 worst moments of the season, I'm not even sure that's going to qualify. They lost by what 40 to Utah at home. They got blown out by Portland at home. They blew 6 leads of at least 15 points in the fourth quarter in the first 30 games of this season. Then there's the Jimmy thing. I mean, this season's been a disaster for a whole bunch of reasons. And we're looking at the comments. This has been one of the most frustrating years I've watched for the Heat. Broham's got it right, by the way. Once we knew this game was going to be on TNT, that was it. Like when is the last time they won a nationally televised game? They're like the Dolphins. They never win any of these games. All right. Let's defending the house, and we'll find something else to do for this.
And now it's time for our Defending the House segment, sponsored by our friends over at The Real Estate Shop. You can find them at realestateshopfl.com. That's with 2 P's and an E, realestateshopfl.com, or at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram. This is Javier Iglesias and Amanda Martin. They help buyers and sellers in real estate. They're nimble and protective of their clients. They service the entire Tri-County area. That's Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties with a proven on-market strategy. The Real Estate Shop sellers earn the most money in the shortest time frame because Amanda and Javier have a deep understanding of the local market. So check them out. Again, it's at the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram, realestateshopfl.com, or give them a call at 954-268-9812. And now, who defended the house?
I want to take this a totally different direction here because we got to get
not one damn person defended the house. Not one.
Exactly. Which is why we're going to take this a different direction before we close. Miami's got one more game on the road trip. It's in Brooklyn against a 14-31 team, but I put nothing past them at this stage. They just lost to Utah and Portland at home by double digits. But then they come home and they get, Orlando and Cleveland when they come home. So I'll let you both take your predictions here. Is Jimmy Butler going to be there defending the Heat's house? Brady, you think we'll see him on Monday?
Yes. I mean, look, I do. I do think it's going to be awkward again. I feel like it's going to be a revolving door time and time again.
God.
And everybody's going to walk in and they're going to have to act like nothing happened, like nothing, like it's no big deal. Spo's not going to bring it up. He's not going to mention it. It's just going to be there. They just got another, player back in the fold. I just think this is the way this season's going to go. It's just going to be a revolving door of the same exact things happening.
Did you just throw in another prediction into that where you think he's going to be here the rest of the season because they don't trade him at the deadline?
Hey,
did I just hear that?
I just answered the question that was being asked.
That's it. I'm not asking for more at this point. The
I'm giving it
last week at his locker.
It's cutting. By the way, I do think he'll be playing on Monday. And I said yesterday I don't think so, but now I do because the way that this thing changes. Well, first thing, I don't know that he's going to do anything else to get suspended in the next 2 days. I don't. Now, I shouldn't put anything past him, just like I shouldn't put it past the Heat to lose in Brooklyn, which they probably will lose in Brooklyn. But they need another reason to suspend him, and I don't know what it would be. I mean, they know where he is today. I mean, they knew he was at the paddle event. He's a chairman there and all that. He's putting it all on Instagram. He's not hiding it. But they can't keep suspending him unless they have a reason. Otherwise, they're going to have to send him home with pay, and they don't want to send him home with pay. That's like the absolute last resort. Like that, they are not going to send him home with pay. They're not going to pay him $500,000 to play dominoes on a nightly basis. They're just not. So until they come off of that, it's going to be the same. I think Brady's right. I think it's the same pattern. They come back in town. He has another meeting.
Sounds so ridiculous when it out loud like that. It's just a ridiculous. We're above this. They thought they were above this. They shot themselves in the foot in the offseason, and now they're here. That's where we're at. For as much as everybody wants to place the blame on Jimmy and doing the character tax on because he's blown it up everywhere else and all that, the Heat started this, and now they got to deal with the consequences. That's just kind of where I'm at with it.
I think we should.
I'm just over it. They become a team that now is not going to win a game unless they hit 50% of their threes. That's the team they are now, and it's about the development of these guys. And Kel'el Ware, for as much as I am excited about everything he's doing, it's awesome. He looks great out there. Still has even more room to go. Obviously, like that, he is the best looking Band-Aid ever, dude. What is it? Helicoptering again? Is that what's happening? I am so sick of this season, man. I'm so sick. I'm done, man. I'm done.
Have a good night, everybody.